This is the Stanley 130 block plane. It's a bigger block plane than most at 20 centimetres in length, or about 8 inches, and 5 centimetres in width, about 2 inches. And it has a unique feature that you don't see on other block planes. If you look at the base, it has 2 slots. One in the normal position that you would expect, and the other one at the back of it with a bullnose configuration. How you use the 2 slots is basically by dismantling the plane and pivoting the entire of the centre componentry. Out comes the blade, spins it around and slot it into the back. And once we have it slotted into the back, we're then in a position to relocate the componentry onto a secondary rod that's close to the back. Now, this one came with this extra plate. I don't know if it's standard or not, but I've left it there. It is one that I plan to look at and understand how it is set up that way. Whether I've got something that someone has done to make it better, or whether that is the standard setup. But here we are with the plane configured as a bullnose block plane, reasonably close to the front of the plane, with only about 1/2 centimetre in it, 3/4 of a centimetre. In fact, we'll just measure that to show. To the back of the slot is 1 centimetre. It's about 1/2 centimetre to the front of the slot, just a tad over 6 mil to the blade. You then have a position to grab it here, which gives you quite a short plane length, but at the back you've got all of this hanging out, so you can utilise a knob with a second hand to guide and help stabilise, but that's the usual spot for the palm of your hand to grip on either side of the plane. Quite a bizarre setup, a little bit strange to use. The 2 rods there come through on either side, and as you can see, it has screw threads, so it could be removed. And again, on the other rod, on the opposite side. So it's threaded in and then cleaned off. Why they came up with this plane, don't know. I don't know what actually drove it. It is one that's intrigued me. It's usable, and the bullnose section at the front of this block plane has come in handy a few times. Not one of my go-to block planes, simply because it is a bit larger. But if you're looking for something that's kind of in between, it may suit your needs. Otherwise, you're probably going to go for a number 3 plane, standard pattern Stanley plane, rather than this. However, it is an interesting piece. As you can see, this is all original Japan. It's 100% Japan. It's still got a gloss about it. The lever cap shows a little bit of wear, but not too much. And it's obviously not been used an awful lot, because the quality of the Japanning on that is, when it's wiped down and cleaned up, is shiny, unchipped, like new, which tells you this plane hasn't really ever been used that much. There's no chips anywhere that are of any significance. It's got a little bit of wear around the toes, as you would expect, but nothing of major significance. It came to me quite rusted and cleaned up pretty quickly, but generally it doesn't show any signs of great wear. It's a screw-on knob. Quite often you'll find that they've been screwed too hard and they've cracked and they're missing. Other than that, great little museum piece, shelf stuffer, dust collector. Also usable. What I have found is this helps apply the pressure across a wider area, although I don't think it's meant as an original piece of equipment, because it's got a centre knob here that pushes down on the blade, as you find in most planes with this style of connector. But I have found that it does tend to slip on that single point of connection, whereas with this in between, although it's obviously been pushed pretty flat and it was originally a rounder piece, and I think it might have been a cap off a handle from a draw front or something like that at some point, but that does seem to give it a broader grip with aiming for that knob to be in the centre of that plate where your draw knob would normally come through. It does seem to hold it a little bit firmer, so I've left it there. Obviously this is not used that often in my kit. For me, it is more of a museum piece. It's an interesting unit. It does raise questions from those that look at it. I just thought I'd run through it. I don't see the 130 talked about very often, probably because it's not used very often and people look at it and don't really see the value in it. But there you are. The 130, double-ended block plane, standard at one end, bullnose at the other. Usable little thing, can be handy in places at a pinch if you don't have another block plane around. Yes, certainly it is one that will stand out as something that you can pick up and grab and use, but it's not one that most people will go to by default, no matter whether you collect or use. Happy hunting.